I'm going to talk about rainwater harvesting for livestock and wildlife. We've gotten some rain recently, so this quells the comments that I get sometimes that we don't have any rain to harvest. And of course what we're doing here is we're planning for the future. So if we put in a rainwater system and we get a rain, we have that storage in place, then we'll be ready for the next drought. So here's an overview. Like I said, I'm going to go straight through, so we're going to talk about the basics of rainwater harvesting, and then I'm going to discuss how to make a simple system that you can put in your pasture. I'll talk about the different uses, financial incentives, how to size a system, critical parts about maintenance, and then go through step by step of a simple rainwater system. So rainwater harvesting is simply the capture, diversion, and storage of rainwater for immediate or later use. Pretty basic and easy concept. It's been going on for thousands of years, and only recently, with the droughts going on, has there been a new interest in rainwater harvesting. So there's different. In extension, we look at two different types of rainwater harvesting: the passive, or also known as simple. And this is when the landscape is used to harvest the rainwater runoff. And a simple example that a lot of landowners use is a stock tank. That is a simple form of rainwater harvesting. You're capturing the runoff from the land. On an urban side, we see rain gardens, bioretention areas, but also bog gardens or soil retention. These are just some of the different passive systems. The active is the more commonly, that's what most people think of when we say rainwater harvesting. This involves the tank distribution, conveyance, and also using a pump if you're in that type of situation. So that's either it's called active or complex, or we refer to it as the tank-based system. Like I said, a simple form of passive rainwater harvesting is a stock tank. For active systems, it's a little bit more complex when we talk about the different components, but it's still very simple. All right, here are the different components that we need in all of our rainwater systems. A catchment, okay, that's a fancy word for the roof. In the landscape, that would just be your watershed where the water's falling and running off from. The conveyance is a fancy word for the gutters and downspouts. The storage can be an above-ground storage tank made of plastic, metal, fiberglass, concrete. It can also be a below-ground storage tank. If you're limited on space, there's plenty of below-ground storage tanks that you can purchase and install, and they're a little bit different structure. They're engineered differently than the above-ground storage tanks, and this is to help from the weight of the soil surrounding it, just to keep it from crushing under the high pressure of the soil. Treatment, this is pretty important. Even if you're not using the water for, say, potable water uses, it's important to treat that water before it goes into your storage tank, just so that you don't have a lot of leaves and other organic material sitting in it. And then distribution, that's just taking it from the storage container to your point of use. Catchment surface, like I said, is the roof. Rainwater harvesting, we recommend a metal roof, painted metal roof. This is because it's the slickest surface roof material, and so if there's any debris that's settling on the roof, it's going to wash off the easiest. You can use any other type of roof surface though, but it's easiest to obtain clean water with that metal roof. We often get the question, what about the roof material and water quality? There's been a couple research studies that have found that only in cases where you have really old roofs where maybe lead or other harmful metals are you going to have issues with materials from the roof. Otherwise, it's just about the contaminants. So if you got a roof like this, you'd be concerned about contamination from the roof surface. All right, so conveyance, pretty simple, just going right from the gutters and the roof, or the roof and the gutters to the storage tank. We want to try and minimize the amount of 90s and L's that we have in our conveyance, especially if we're in an area with a lot of leaves and debris. It's just another potential area for garbage to collect and cause clogging. Also, we don't think about it, but there is friction in pipes with water. So the more debris, the more turns, the more L's you have in your piping, the more friction there is, and the slower it's going to take to get to your storage tank. Storage tanks, like I said earlier, above ground, below ground, they're also referred to as cisterns. You can have different materials, and you can go ahead and, if we're talking about pasture, providing water for livestock and wildlife, we're not concerned as much about the appearance, but just to let you know, if you're in a house and you want to install a rain barrel for your garden, there's an easy way to put fence panels around the outside and wrap it with some type of metal flashing, and it gives it a nice whiskey barrel appearance to it. So you're hiding the ugly blue barrel appearance that some of the rain barrels are made from. Like I said, the treatment, there's 2 times we're going to treat water. Now, usually if you're just using it for irrigation or, say, livestock and wildlife, you're not going to need a disinfection treatment. That's what we call after storage treatment. But before storage treatment is pretty important no matter what you're using it for. And we have 2 different types: screening, and there's a lot of different types of screening treatments. And this picture here on the left is basically a cleaning screen that you would put on your downspout. And so water would go initially down the downspout, and the debris would fall off the screen. The water would fall right through. Here's a basket screen. This would go on the top of your storage container. In this picture, we have a below-ground storage tank, but this is a very similar basket that you would see on a larger above-ground storage container. And to prove that these work, here's a picture of the same size basket screen that's full of crickets. And so this was a rainwater system up in Kaufman, Texas, just outside of Dallas, and they had a light on top of the roof, and all the crickets were attracted to that light, and then they had a heavy downpour, and here you go, you avoided having a tank full of fish bait. So this is to prove that the basket screen does work to help improve water quality. The other type of treatment that we talk about is diversion. What diversion is basically a sacrifice of your first amount of water coming off the roof. When it first starts raining, all the dust, debris, bird droppings that's settled on the roof is going to be washed off. So the first water coming off the roof is the dirtiest. And so if we divert it first and then let the remaining water go to our tank, we're going to have cleaner water. So in this picture on the left, this would be where the water is diverted to, in this gray part of the pipe. So once that fills up, the remaining water continues to the tank. So here's a real picture of one on the right in Granbury, Texas. This would fill up, and the remaining water, which is cleaner, would go into the storage container. So if you're in a situation where you can't put a screen, or there's not a lot of leaves, but you still anticipate pollen or bird droppings, this would be a good way to go for the pre-storage treatment. In the pasture, for wildlife and livestock, you're not really concerned about this type of treatment, but just to let you know, there are a lot of people in Texas moving to rainwater to supplement their well water in their homes, whether for flushing toilets or complete home systems. In that situation, you do want a treatment after storage. Filtration, that's just taking out a lot of the sediments, any particles that may be left in your tank. And disinfection, this is how we're going to be killing or disrupting the microorganisms that may be in the water. And absorption, these are more for the point of use. So you see these are charcoal filters that you may use for at the end of your faucet. So your Brita or Pure filters that you have on the end of your faucet, they take out any remaining chemicals that may be in your water supply. So in the picture here, this is a full home system, and what a lot of people who use rainwater for everything do is they go through these cartridge filters. The water comes in from the left and then goes up through a UV system that kills the microorganisms, and then goes on to the pressure tank where it then is distributed to the rest of the house. Distribution, very simple. You're going from the storage container to the point of use. This picture is a very simple distribution system. Another thing to mention, if you're going to be irrigating, it's important to have some type of inline filter, because any type of micro irrigation can easily get clogged with sediment that may be in the tank. It's easy distribution. This is a very complex and confusing distribution system. So we want to avoid complicated messes that the next user is going to look at and just get rid of because it's too complicated. All right, what are some of the things that we can use rainwater for? Anything you're using water for, you can use rainwater for. Irrigation, this is probably the biggest use in Texas on our active tank-based systems. People harvesting the rainwater to irrigate vegetable beds, landscaping beds. And when you have that supply and you can see it, you become a lot more conscious of the water that you're using. And so you're not going to see many people using rainwater for turf grass or other high water use vegetation. So this is, when you use rainwater, you're going to move towards more water efficient uses. Landscape water features, so whether it be bird bass or other landscape features. In-home use, like I said, more and more people are moving to this, whether it just be for non-potable uses or everything in the home. Stormwater control. In our cities, this is a big deal. So if anyone's been to the Corpus Christi Bay after a rain event, you can see all the storm drains just emptying out. It's because we have so much road surface, so many buildings, there's nowhere for the water to go but down all the storm drains. So if we harvest that rain and use it in our backyards, we're limiting that runoff and helping to reduce all that harmful water that can cause erosion and essentially a lot of beach closings after rain events. And then of course we have livestock and wildlife watering. So we have game cameras set up. This is like my coworker, his parents' place in Hallettsville, and they put up a guzzler. This is what we call it, a rainwater harvesting guzzler. So basically, just a roof made and then having a couple rain barrels on their sides underneath. And then we have a watering device right here. So what are some of the benefits of using rainwater for wildlife? You can increase usable habitat, attract additional species to your land. You can increase the numbers and diversity, and it is one of the improvement strategies for the wildlife tax valuation, providing supplemental water for the wildlife. So very simple setup that you can do is a guzzler. And just like I mentioned earlier, these are the simple components. You can put in one of those first flush treatments or a screen, But as you can see in this picture, you're not surrounded by large trees in this situation, so if it's easier for you to go out and clean that storage tank every now and then, you can do that. But in this particular example, there was no pre-storage treatment. But again, roof, gutter, downspout, storage container, in the watering device. So it's just a 6x8 roof with a 300-gallon storage container, and then one of the simple watering pans that you can find at a farm and ranch supply store that has a float valve in it, and so it just always stays full. There's a lot of examples out in Texas. This one uses concrete as a storage container. I would advise against open storage tanks. A lot more potential for contamination. It's just going to end up it's going to be collecting a lot of algae if there's not a water flowing through it. With our enclosed storage containers, we're avoiding that sun penetration, and so we have less potential for algae growth. This is in far west Texas. Another simple design, just a roof, and then we have 4 of our 55-gallon drums on the side, and this provides over 200 gallons of storage. And so your one tank's going to fill, and it's going to overflow through this pipe and go into the second tank and the third. And so, and then there's you can't see it from this picture, but there's another pipe on the other side that connects to this last one where the animals drink from. You can see on this bottom picture a little bit on the right, that last tank is kind of inverted up a little bit, and there's an opening on the other side where the animals drink from. So a very, very basic one for a homeowner to do, landowner, just taking that metal roof and connecting it right to the storage container. This is a very unique design here. So the roof is almost inverted. So you have like an inverted umbrella on top of the storage container. You're not maximizing your roof area, but this is just a clever way of harvesting rainwater. And then it would be channeled underground. Off this top picture you can't see, but here it is. It would be channeled underground to this watering device. So a couple more pictures just to prove we're getting some wildlife at our wildlife watering devices. This is a mountain lion along the Rio Grande River. This is the chupacabra. And then we have some axis deer. This is out in Junction, Texas. And again, this is the same picture from Hallettsville, or the same location in Hallettsville. And for any hunters out there, you can see, this could provide a good way to attract potential trophies if you're looking for deer to hunt. All right, livestock. So rainwater harvesting for livestock, it can supplement your stock tanks or ponds, supplement above ground storage tanks that are serviced by wells, or it could be your primary water source. We don't recommend it being completely primary. It's a good idea to have some type of backup system in case you do go through a very extreme drought and your supply runs out. But most people, you're going to look at rainwater harvesting, and it's going to be one of these. It's going to supplement your well water. It's going to supplement that stock tank that might run out. And so even if you go ahead and truck water from your stock tank to that rainwater storage tank, it provides another location for your livestock to get water. Okay, so reducing demand on well or other sources. It reduces the need to truck in water if we have a drought. And it can be placed anywhere on the land. When we talk about stock tanks, they have to be placed at the bottom of a watershed, of a catchment area, so all the water will collect there. It's good quality and cool water. That's another thing to mention. It's not exposed to the sun, and so it's not going over all the land where all the animals' waste is, and it's just going right from the roof to the storage tank. It's going to be a lot cleaner for the animals, and so long as it's not exposed to the sunlight, it's going to be cooler in the summertime. And it's instant storage. So when we talk about a stock tank, we get a rain event, a lot of water is going to go into the ground. If you have a roof surface, it's going to go right off the roof into your tank, so you're not losing any of that water to infiltration. Another benefit is it provides another water source, so your livestock are going to be spread out more. Instead of concentrating on one water source and having excessive grazing near that one water source, they're going to better utilize the entire pasture. So this reduces travel time, so they have more time to eat and gain weight. And so that's the goal of producing livestock. So just another place for them to obtain water, and they don't have to travel as much distance. So are there any financial incentives? I mentioned earlier it provides one of the components for the wildlife tax valuation. And so you either have to be currently part of an ag land or timberland to go into a wildlife tax valuation. Just a couple things. You must apply to the county by May 1st. You have to include a wildlife management plan. And so there's a lot of aspects to it that I'm not familiar with, but supplemental water is one of them that I know for sure. And so the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, their website has more information on how to obtain this wildlife tax valuation. Another important one that I learned of pretty recently was the NRCS cost share. And so they will provide a cost share 50 to 90%, depending on your location, on the materials to put up a rainwater harvesting system for livestock. And this is through EQIP, and it's to help reduce a lot of the runoff like I mentioned earlier. It's different in every location, so contact your local NRCS office for more information. Okay, how to size the system. It's basically a balance of supply and demand. All right, when we look at our supply, it is rainfall data, and this includes the average annual amount, your rainfall intensity, the duration between rainfall events, and the monthly patterns. I'll talk a little bit about each of these. Also, it has to do with your catchment size. So how big is your roof? 1,000 square feet of roof collects over 600 gallons of water from just 1 inch of rain. So we have a tremendous potential out there to harvest a lot of water. Okay, so here's the average annual rainfall. That's one of the components. As you can see, in this particular area, we average 32 in Corpus Christi, average annual rainfall. Last year we were a lot lower than that. I think it was between around 15 inches or so, 12 inches. And so, the average annual rainfall is based on a 30-year average. And so it's going to be more than, it's going to be below than. In fact, in the year before, 2010, it was a lot more than the average. And I think it was over 140% of the average. So each year is going to be different. But knowing that average is good to help estimate the amount you can capture in a given year. How many days between rain events? This map you can see was made in 2004, and you know that we can move a lot of these lines west or east rather. So this map needs to be updated, but what it tells us is how long does our storage need to last us between rain events. So, historically, if we were in Brazos County, we'd have to go between 50 and 60 days of our storage between the next rain event, maximum dry period. Okay, rainfall patterns during the year. So this is pretty hard to see. The El Paso color is tan, and you can see they have this wet period, quote unquote wet period. They get about 9 to 10 inches for the entire year on average, but most of their rain comes during these late summer months. And so if you're in El Paso, you're going to have to plan for, you're going to have to store the water to get you through the remaining dry months, right? So you're going to have to last from November through the following May or June before your next rainy season. But if you're in San Antonio, or the patterns are similar here in Corpus, where you have somewhat of a wet spring, and then the fall period is characteristically wet too, from hurricanes, tropical storms. And so in this situation, you'd only have to, at the most, you'd have to last from November through the following April with the storage you have. So that's just something to think about. All right, if you're going to leave with any important number, this is the one right here, your 0.62. Okay, what that number is a conversion factor basically, and you can take the amount of roof area and multiply it by that number, and it gives you how many gallons of water you can capture from an inch of rain. And so a simple example, we just have a 10 by 20 roof. It's 200 square feet, and on 1 inch of rainfall, we can collect 120 gallons of water. So you start thinking about the average barn size, or you look at bigger buildings like poultry houses, tremendous amount of water that can be harvested from these buildings. So that was supply. The demand is basically what you're using. On irrigation, it's plant water requirements. I could spend a whole day talking about that itself, but basically how much water the plant's going to be using. One of the handouts we have is the publication just titled Rainwater Harvesting. That goes through, it explains how to calculate plant water requirements a little bit more in depth. And so if you're interested, it's in that publication, which is also available for free online. In-home use, you're just looking at the number of people, their water use patterns, and then type of appliances. So if you look at old homes, your toilets may use 5 to 7 gallons per flush. Your new toilets are using 1.6. And so if the average person flushes 5 times a day, you can see the difference in the amount of water use is very great by using that water-efficient appliance. And then for livestock and wildlife, it's just the number of animals times their demand. Here's just an estimate for daily consumption by different livestock species. We say 2 gallons of water per 100 pounds of body weight. And so it will range depending on what age animal you have, or if they're pregnant, whatnot. So it will depend, and also what time of year. So these numbers will vary. But it's good to go on the high end if you're trying to estimate. And then how many water sources? Just some of the wildlife species out there. How much water would they need? How much spacing between water sources? For supplemental water, so just different animals requiring, depending on how far they will travel and how much water they need to consume. So This is in the, these numbers are in the handout in case you want to jot them down. An easy way to do a calculate the size is a computer calculator, and the website rainwaterharvesting.tamu.edu. If you put in /calculators, you can download this Excel file for free, and basically you just put in all your components, and whether it be your catchment area, your tank size, how much water you're going to use, and then it shows you in a graph over the course of 3 years what your volume is going to be, which is your green line, and then this purple line is supplemental water. So you can play around, say, well, if I make my roof bigger, if I make my tank bigger, how can I go through the entire year without needing supplemental water? Now that was supposed to pop up as a joke, but if you want to put up a sign to let the wildlife know where they can get their water, you can do that. But this slide has the maintenance aspects on it, and maintenance is very important, especially if you're using it for in-home use and you're drinking this water daily. But regardless of the use, it's critical to make sure your gutters are clean, making sure that your roof surface is well attached to the frame, and just basic maintenance things to keep your system going. If you do have treatment, making sure that you're changing out the filters according to recommendations by the manufacturer and checking for leaks. All too often I go to demonstration sites around the state and the pipes aren't even connected, so water is not even getting into the storage tank. And so it's important to make sure that someone's designated as the maintenance person. All right, so I brought some components for a system with me just to show you how to put together some of the parts of a simple guzzler. So when you're building a guzzler, what type of wildlife or livestock, so depending on what's in your pasture, in your land, will determine how much water is needed. And then by using those calculators or just your own math, determine the storage size, determine the roof area, what's your location going to be, make the drawing, and then collect materials. All these numbers are not going to be, it's going to vary depending on what size system, but a very simple guzzler, might just require these simple materials. So you can just use 2x4 wood, simple plastic gutters, PVC piping, and I'll go through the steps so you can know where these components are being used. So measuring and cutting all the materials, constructing the frame for the roof, and some of you out here may be a lot better at constructing things out of wood than me, but this is a very simple device that you can do even in your backyard to attract wildlife. This is just the basic form that I'm going to be explaining. So this one is just 56 by 43. There's two ways you can do it. You can either attach the frame to the legs, or you can bury the post into the ground first, which is a little bit easier. But if you have a very small system, you can just attach them first and then flip it over. And then there's the base for the barrel. Okay, so for the rain barrel, it's meant to stand upright, but a lot of times with these guzzlers, we want to minimize the height of our roof, and so we can put it on its side. And so providing a base for that barrel so it doesn't roll off or be laying on the ground is pretty important. So this is just a picture of a simple base that you can make for the barrel. And there's just some of the dimensions. And you just nestle the barrel right into that base, and that way it won't roll off, and you'll have it off the ground, and it also gives it a little bit of elevation too. And so washing out the barrel, one of the questions I'll probably get, so I'll answer it now, is where do we find these barrels? And that's a good question. We get recycled barrels. We try to find barrels that have been used as something that is safe for consumption. I've been to farm and ranch stores in North Texas where they tried to sell me one that had uric acid in it, and I said, no way. So we try to go to the ones that previously had food grade material in them. So we have a lot of barrels that previously had tomatoes, barbecue sauce. These particular barrels had a iodine solution used for cleaning the udders of dairy cows. So very not a very caustic or harmful material that was in here. But we washed it out thoroughly just to make sure we don't have any residue left. So you can drill 2 holes in the caps. Putting holes in the caps makes it easier. So I mean there are already openings in the barrels, so you don't have to make any additional ones. You can put the hose bib on the bottom hole, and then the top hole is going to be used for the piping the water into it. And so threading that hose bib into the barrel, and we have an Aggie here, that's good, right? And so installing the frame into the ground, the back leg should be slightly taller, so there has some slope to the roof. Obviously we want to capture that water going the right direction. It's pretty important to put some concrete in there to secure it. Again, this picture got in the way, but when we're attaching the roof, you want a small overhang so the water is going into the gutter properly, and drill those roofing screws right into the frame. Here's a very large example that we did up at the Dallas Extension Center, and these roofs were being used for some graduate research. But we had to do the same thing. We took a chalk line across that roof just so that we knew we were actually drilling into the frame when we were up on the roof there. And what you can do is you can take the base of the frame, the base that we made for the barrel, and just go ahead and secure it into the legs, the posts for the whole structure, and that just keeps the whole thing in place. Preparing the gutter. So I prepared a small gutter. I hope you all can see this on the camera. But this is just the length of the system that I'm going to make, about 4 feet long. And just drill a small hole on the bottom on one end. And we had trouble figuring out the easiest way to go from a hole in the gutter to a PVC pipe, and one of the easiest ways is just a snap-on shower drain. So a 2-inch shower drain goes right in there, and we seal that with some type of silicone sealer, and then we can put our 2-inch PVC pipe right into that. The other thing on this gutter is are the gutter braces. Okay, so this connects the gutter to the frame of the roof, and I have 2. We recommend 1 every 3 feet, and this is because water weighs 8.33 pounds per gallon. So if we had this whole gutter full of water, we would need a lot of support for it. So it's just a picture of putting the gutter on the frame. Installing the piping. So like I said, putting that shower drain into the bottom of the gutter, inserting the PVC into that drain. We want to make sure we're using our PVC glue and primer to seal it properly. And then you just use simple PVC elbows, connect the PVC pipe to the elbows and direct it to the top of the barrel. One of the nice things about these barrels, these blue recycled 55-gallon drums, is the threaded openings fit perfectly for a 2-inch male adapter. And that's what this is called. You just screw it in one of the threaded openings, and then you can just connect your 2-inch PVC. So, simple as can be. So a very inexpensive system with the barrel, all the wood, and this is all treated wood to be exposed out in the elements. The roofing is probably the most expensive part, the metal galvanized roof, but you can get everything for a simple system like this for less than $200, maybe even $150. But the barrel is the most expensive part to a system. These recycled barrels we got for I think around $16 in Fort Worth. But if you're getting a large storage tank, the price is going to increase, especially if you're buying brand new ones. But if we compare the price to drilling a new well, it's going to definitely be comparable or a whole lot cheaper depending on your site. I can get a 3,000-gallon storage container for $1,000. I know for sure if you're in the hill country, it costs about $20,000 to drill a well. So I don't know what it is like here, but I've heard those prices up in the hill country. So especially up in that part of the state, putting in a rainwater system is worth the money. So this is the system in Hallettsville. You can see they sealed the shower drain. And then in this particular system, they had 2 barrels, and they connected them at the bottom. And they just have a hose faucet on the outlet here, and they directed it to this watering can. So here's just another picture. In this picture, we have a concrete bird bath that someone made, and at the end, they stuck a 1/4-inch vinyl tubing through copper tubing to kind of give it the support, and then put a drip emitter at the end. So that's a simple way to have a dripping bird bath, but not enough water for livestock, but just a simple example of what we can do. The other part I didn't talk about, let's see, go back. Yes. Okay, you can kind of see it in this picture. Right here in the top corner is an overflow. That's one of the components I didn't mention earlier. But we need an overflow. We don't want all the water backing up our PVC pipe and overflowing in the gutters. And so an easy way to do that is you can drill another hole on the back side, and then using 3/4-inch pipes, a good example. You just have some type of overflow to direct that excess water away from your tank. Now, what's the problem with using this 3/4-inch pipe when we have a 2-inch pipe going into our tank? During our heavy rain events, it's going to back up anyway because there's just not enough. The overflow and the inlet have to have equal volume because the amount of water coming in has got to equal the amount of water going out. So this is an ideal, but it'll work in a pinch. If you want an in-depth manual, we have the Rainwater Harvesting System Planning Manual that's available for purchase on our agrilifebookstore.org. It goes step by step from the early planning phases all the way up to pumps and controls, more in-depth information on how to size the system, and a lot on maintenance as well. But you can also go to this website and download. There's a bunch of rainwater harvesting publications. We have one that's for rainwater harvesting for livestock. I didn't bring it with me today, but you can download that for free. There's also one on how to make a rain barrel, and that's also free to download. So you can go here and get all the information you want. And also the rainwater harvesting website, and this is what the web address is for more information, and it's got my contact information as well. And that's all I have. So,
questions for Brent? You have a question?
I got a question. I've been harvesting that rainwater for a long time, but I always had a mosquito problem. Because I'm using it to grow my plants. What can I put in there?
okay, so the question is the issue of mosquitoes and what to do about mosquitoes. Very important question. We recommend just screening everything anywhere there's going to be an opening. So on the overflow, putting in just a window screen on there and securing it. Or where the water's going from the gutter down the downspout into the tank, have the screening there. You can also use the mosquito dunks, but they're just a little bit more pricey than screen would be. But as long as everything's screened, you shouldn't have a problem with mosquitoes. Other questions?